Your brain sabotages you every payday. What if one mental switch unlocked millions? Right now, invisible code runs your money decisions. That code was written when you were 7 years old. Most people replay the same broke script forever. You're about to delete it. 3 questions reveal if poverty programming controls you. Do you flinch before checking your bank balance? Do you apologize when negotiating salary? Do you feel guilty spending on yourself? If you answered yes to any of these, your subconscious is your enemy. This audiobook rewrites that enemy into your wealthiest ally. Warning. Listeners report sudden career jumps, unexpected income streams, and uncomfortable conversations with broke friends. The transformation starts before this first section ends. No affirmations, no vision boards, just neural rewiring backed by neuroscience and bank statements. Let's begin. You think you make conscious choices about money. You believe you're in control when you decide to skip that business opportunity, when you settle for that salary, when you talk yourself out of asking for what you're worth. But here's the truth that most people spend their entire lives refusing to see. You're not making those decisions. A program is making them for you. A program installed decades ago, running silently in the background of your mind, executing the same commands over and over. And that program is keeping you broke. Right now, as you listen to these words, your brain is processing them through a filter. That filter was built before you could spell your own name. It was constructed from moments you don't consciously remember. The time your mother's face tightened when the bills came. The silence at the dinner table after your father lost his job. The phrase you heard 1,000 times, "We can't afford that," delivered with a particular tone that taught you money was scarce, dangerous, and not for people like you. You absorbed these lessons the way you absorbed language, without trying, without choosing, without any ability to question or resist. And now, 30 or 40 or 50 years later, you're still running that same software. When you see a price tag, that 7-year-old's fear response fires. When someone asks what you charge, that childhood shame floods your nervous system. When an opportunity appears, that ancient program runs its risk assessment and almost always chooses safety over wealth. This is the poverty operating system. It's sophisticated, it's invisible, and it's been running your financial life without your permission. The question isn't whether you have it. Everyone does. The question is whether you're ready to identify it, understand it, and completely rewrite it. Let's start with diagnosis. There are 3 primary types of poverty programming, and you need to know which one controls you. The first is the survivor. If you're a survivor, you live in perpetual emergency mode. Every financial decision feels life or death. You hoard small amounts of money while simultaneously sabotaging larger opportunities because your nervous system can't distinguish between actual danger and the discomfort of growth. You probably work harder than anyone you know, but you're exhausted because your brain treats every workday like you're outrunning a predator. The second type is the avoider. Avoiders developed a different survival strategy. They learned that thinking about money causes pain, so they simply don't think about it. If you're an avoider, you probably have unopened bills, vague ideas about your actual income, and a masterful ability to change the subject when numbers come up. You're not lazy. You're not stupid. You're protecting yourself from a threat your young brain coded as overwhelming. The third type is the saboteur. Saboteurs get close to success and then systematically destroy it. You might recognize this pattern if you've ever landed a great opportunity and then missed the meeting, said something catastrophically inappropriate, or suddenly developed a mysterious illness. If you've ever made more money than usual and then immediately spent it on an emergency that appeared out of nowhere, you're watching the saboteur program execute. It's not bad luck. It's your subconscious protecting you from the danger it believes wealth represents. Most people are a combination of these 3, but one dominates. Take a moment right now and ask yourself which pattern feels most familiar. Don't judge it. Don't try to fix it yet. Just notice it. Because awareness is where reprogramming begins. Now we need to go deeper. We need to find the exact moment your poverty program was installed. This moment exists. It's sitting in your memory, though you may not have accessed it in decades. It's what I call your financial flashpoint, and identifying it is the single most important diagnostic work you'll do. Close your eyes if you're in a safe place to do so. If you're driving or walking, just soften your gaze. Take a breath deep into your belly. Hold it for a moment. Release it slowly. Do that 2 more times. Feel your body settle into whatever surface supports you right now. Now ask yourself this question. When was the first time you felt afraid about money? Don't force an answer. Just hold the question gently and see what image, what memory, what feeling surfaces. Maybe you see your mother crying over a checkbook. Maybe you hear your parents fighting behind a closed door. Maybe you remember the shame of wearing secondhand clothes to school. or the terror of an eviction notice taped to your door. Maybe it's more subtle. A comment someone made, a gift you wanted but knew better than to ask for, a moment when you realized that money was the invisible force that made adults tense and unhappy. Whatever comes up, that's your financial flashpoint. That's the moment your brain said, I need to protect this person from this feeling forever. And it built your poverty program right then, customized to keep you safe from ever experiencing that particular flavor of pain again. The problem is, the program your 7-year-old self designed to avoid pain is now causing different pain. The pain of limitation, of unrealized potential, of looking at your bank account and feeling that familiar sinking sensation that nothing ever really changes. Here's what you need to understand about that moment. It wasn't wrong. Your brain wasn't malfunctioning. It was doing exactly what it was designed to do, which is keep you alive and protect you from threats. In that moment, financial lack or financial stress or financial shame registered as a genuine threat to your well-being. Your brain cataloged it right alongside physical dangers, and it built a sophisticated system to make sure you'd never be vulnerable to that threat again. But here's the critical insight. That threat assessment was made by a child's brain with a child's limited information and a child's narrow range of options. That child didn't know that wealth was possible, didn't know that financial skills could be learned, didn't know that the circumstances causing that painful moment were temporary and solvable. All that child knew was, this hurts, this is dangerous, I must avoid this forever. And so your poverty program was born. It's been running ever since, making split-second decisions designed to keep you away from anything that resembles that original pain. The problem is, almost everything involved in building wealth resembles that pain. Taking risks feels like the risk that led to your father's business failure. Charging premium prices feels like the greed that your mother condemned. Saving aggressively feels like the hoarding that caused tension in your household. Your poverty program can't tell the difference between destructive financial behavior and wealth-building financial behavior, because to your young brain, they all carry the same emotional signature: danger. So what do we do with this information? We don't shame ourselves for having this program. We don't try to positive think our way past it. We don't pretend it doesn't exist. We acknowledge it clearly and directly. We say, yes, this program exists. Yes, it was created for a valid reason. Yes, it served me once. And no, it doesn't serve me anymore. Now we rewrite it. Before we move into the reprogramming protocols, you need to understand what's happening in your brain when poverty thinking activates. Because once you understand the mechanism, you can interrupt it. And interruption is the first step toward installation of new code. Your brain has several key players in your financial drama. The first is your amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in your brain that acts as your threat detection system. Your amygdala doesn't think. It doesn't reason. It doesn't care about your goals or your dreams or your logical arguments about why you should take that business risk. It only cares about one thing: keeping you alive. And it defines alive very conservatively. Alive means familiar. Alive means safe. Alive means exactly what you've been doing because you've survived this long doing it. When you consider any action that would significantly increase your income, your amygdala scans its threat database. It compares this new action against your financial flashpoint and every financial fear moment you've experienced since then. If it finds any similarity, any echo of that old pain, it floods your system with stress chemicals. Cortisol, adrenaline, the same chemicals you'd get if you were facing a physical attack. And suddenly that email you were going to send asking for a raise feels impossible. That price increase you were going to implement feels dangerous. That business you were going to start feels like stepping off a cliff. This isn't weakness. This is neuroscience. Your amygdala is faster than your thinking brain. It makes threat assessments in milliseconds, long before your prefrontal cortex, where logic and reasoning happen. This isn't metaphor. This is measurable physical change in your brain structure. Neuroscientists can see it on brain scans. When someone learns a new skill, you can watch new neural connections form. When someone changes a habitual thought pattern, you can see old connections weaken and new ones strengthen. Your brain is not your destiny. Your brain is your tool, and you're about to learn how to use it. Now we're ready for the reprogramming protocol. This is the practical application of everything you've just learned. This is where you take control of your neural pathways and deliberately build new ones. I'm going to give you a sequence of practices that, when done consistently for 21 days, will create measurable change in your financial behavior. Not because of magic, not because of manifestation, because of neuroscience. The first practice is what I call the 4 a.m. millionaire mind routine. Now, you don't have to wake up at 4 in the morning if that doesn't work for your life. But you do need to understand why the early morning window is neurologically optimal for reprogramming. When you first wake up, before you've fully transitioned into beta brainwave state, you're in a theta dominant state. This is the same state you're in right before sleep and during deep meditation. In theta state, your critical thinking mind, the part that argues and doubts and brings up all the logical reasons why change won't work, is quiet. This means your subconscious is more receptive to new programming. Here's the practice. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone, before you interact with anyone, before you start thinking about your day, you're going to spend 10 minutes installing new wealth code. You do this by speaking directly to your subconscious in the language it understands best, which is present tense, identity-based declarations delivered with emotional intensity. Not "I will be wealthy someday," not "I hope to make more money," but "I am the person who generates wealth effortlessly. I am someone who sees and seizes profitable opportunities. Money flows to me easily because I provide immense value. I make financial decisions from abundance, not fear." You speak these statements out loud. You feel them in your body. You don't worry about whether you believe them yet. You're not trying to convince your conscious mind. You're implanting code in your subconscious while the gate is open. Do this every morning for 21 days, and you will notice your automatic reactions to financial situations start to shift. The flinch will soften. The fear will quiet. New instincts will emerge. The second practice is somatic wealth anchoring. Your body stores your poverty programming just as much as your mind does. You have physical sensations associated with financial fear, tension in your chest, tightness in your throat, weakness in your legs. These bodily responses are part of the program, and we need to rewrite them. Here's how. Sit comfortably and bring to mind a specific financial fear. Maybe it's checking your bank balance. Maybe it's sending an invoice. Maybe it's having a salary negotiation. Let yourself feel the fear in your body. Notice where it lives. Notice its qualities. Don't try to change it. Just observe it with curiosity. Now, take a slow breath in through your nose, filling your belly first, then your chest. Hold it for a count of 4. Exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6. Do this 3 times. Feel your nervous system start to regulate. Now, while you're in this calmer state, bring to mind a moment when you felt powerful. It doesn't have to be about money. Maybe it's a moment you accomplished something difficult. Maybe it's a moment you stood up for yourself. Maybe it's a moment you felt deeply loved. Find that memory and let it fill your body. Notice where you feel it. Maybe your chest expands. Maybe your shoulders drop. Maybe you feel warmth or lightness. This is your power state. This is your wealth anchor. Touch your thumb and forefinger together gently. This creates a physical anchor. While holding this anchor, intensify the feeling of power. Breathe into it. Live in it for 60 seconds. Then release your fingers. Do this same sequence every day. Feel the fear, regulate your nervous system, activate the power state, create the anchor. After 2 weeks, something remarkable happens. When you touch your thumb and forefinger together, your body will automatically drop into that power state. You've created a neurological shortcut. Now, before any financial action that scares you, you can touch your fingers together and your body will shift into the state that takes empowered action. You've hijacked your own nervous system for wealth. The third practice is the Pattern Interrupt Toolkit. Remember, your poverty program runs automatically. It sees certain triggers and executes certain responses without your conscious involvement. To reprogram, you need to catch the program mid-execution and disrupt it. This trains your brain that the old response is no longer inevitable. Here are the interrupts. When you notice poverty thinking arising, when you hear yourself say, "I can't afford that," or "That's too expensive," or "I'm not the kind of person who," immediately do something physical that breaks the pattern. Snap your fingers. Clap your hands once. Stand up if you're sitting. Sit down if you're standing. The physical disruption signals to your brain that we're not following the usual script anymore. Then immediately replace the thought. "I can't afford that" becomes "How could I create the income to afford that?" "That's too expensive" becomes "What value am I not seeing in this price?" "I'm not the kind of person who" becomes "I'm becoming the kind of person who." You're not trying to convince yourself. You're interrupting the automaticity of the old program and offering your brain an alternative pathway. Do this 100 times, and the old pathway starts to weaken. Do this 1,000 times, and the new pathway becomes the default. The fourth practice is subconscious scripting through bedtime audio protocols. Just as the morning is optimal for installing new code, the time right before sleep is equally powerful. As you're falling asleep, you transition back through theta into delta wave state. In this transition, your subconscious is wide open. This is why the thoughts you think right before sleep have such a strong influence on your mood the next day, and why anxiety before bed creates anxious mornings. We're going to use this window deliberately. Create or find an audio recording that describes your wealth reality in present tense. Not someday, not goals, but as if it's already true. I wake up energized because my multiple income streams give me freedom. I make financial decisions easily because I trust my wealth instincts. I see opportunities everywhere because my mind is trained to spot value. My bank account grows consistently because I take aligned action. Play this recording as you fall asleep. You likely won't hear most of it consciously because you'll be asleep. Perfect. Your subconscious hears it. Your subconscious doesn't sleep, and it's absorbing this new identity while your conscious mind's defenses are completely offline. The fifth practice is what I call the wallet audit, and it's both diagnostic and transformative. Take out your wallet right now. Actually do it. Look at everything in there. What does it contain? Old receipts you haven't looked at? A credit card you're afraid to use because you don't know the balance? Cash that's crumpled and shoved in without care? Gift cards you forgot about? Your wallet is a physical representation of your relationship with money. If it's chaotic, cluttered, disorganized, or neglected, that's not a coincidence. That's your poverty program expressing itself physically. Here's the reprogramming action. Clean your wallet completely. Remove everything. Organize your cash so every bill faces the same direction. Delete old receipts. Know the balance on every card. Treat your wallet like it contains something precious, because it does. It contains the tool you use to exchange value in the world. Every time you open your wallet from now on, you're going to have a split-second choice. Treat money with respect or treat it with neglect. Choose respect every single time. Your subconscious is watching. When it sees you treating money with care, it starts to believe money is something worth having more of. The sixth practice is mirror declarations, and this one is uncomfortable for most people, which is exactly why it works. Every morning, after your 4 a.m. millionaire mind routine, you're going to stand in front of a mirror, look yourself directly in the eyes, and speak your new wealth identity out loud. I am wealthy. I generate income easily. I deserve financial abundance. Money is safe in my hands. I am the person who builds generational wealth. Why is this so uncomfortable? Because you're confronting the gap between your current reality and your declared identity. Your conscious mind screams liar. Your body might cringe. You might feel ridiculous. Good. That discomfort is the feeling of neural pathways being challenged. That cringe is your poverty program recognizing it's under threat. Keep going. Say it anyway. Say it until the discomfort fades. Say it until you can look yourself in the eyes without flinching. That's when you know the new programming is taking hold. Do these 6 practices daily for 21 days. Not 20. Not when you feel like it. 21 consecutive days. Why 21? Because research on habit formation shows this is the minimum time frame for a new neural pathway to establish itself with enough strength that it starts to compete with old patterns. After 21 days, you'll notice automatic changes in your financial behavior. You'll catch yourself about to apologize for your price, and the apology will die on your lips. You'll see an opportunity. Now burn the letter. Actually burn it. Watch it turn to ash. This is not symbolic. This is a ritual that signals to your subconscious that something has ended. As you watch it burn, feel everything that identity represented dissolving. The limitations, the excuses, the familiar story about why wealth wasn't possible. Let it all go up in smoke. Some of you are thinking this sounds dramatic. It is dramatic, because identity death is dramatic. If you want incremental change, do incremental things. If you want complete transformation, you need to completely release who you've been. Your poverty identity will not volunteer to leave. It will rationalize. It will explain why you should stay small. It will offer very reasonable arguments for why wealth is dangerous or corrupting or not really what you want anyway. You have to consciously choose to kill it, and you have to mark that killing with a ceremony that your subconscious recognizes as final. After you've burned the letter, you need to step into the new identity immediately. Don't leave a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does your psyche. If you kill the old identity without installing a new one, the old one will resurrect. So immediately after the burning, write a new declaration. Write I am, and then describe your wealthy self in present tense. Not I will be, not I hope to be. I am someone who generates multiple income streams. I am someone who makes confident financial decisions. I am someone who sees value and captures it. I am someone who builds wealth that serves my family and my community. I am someone money flows to easily because I offer immense value. Write at least 10 statements. Then read them out loud every morning for 30 days. You're installing the new operating system. You're telling your brain this is who we are now. Here's what's going to happen. At first, these statements will feel false. Your brain will protest. But if you keep speaking them, something shifts. The statements start to feel neutral. Then they start to feel possible. Then one day, you'll realize they feel true. That's the moment the new identity has taken root. That's the moment your behavior starts to automatically align with wealth instead of poverty. Let me tell you about Rachel, because her story illustrates this identity shift perfectly. Rachel was a graphic designer who'd been charging $40 an hour for 8 years. She knew she was underpriced. Her clients told her she was underpriced, but every time she considered raising her rates, her throat would close and she'd talk herself out of it. She'd say things like, "The market's competitive, clients can't afford more, I'm lucky to have work at all." Classic poverty program. When Rachel did the identity work, she discovered her broke identity was connected to a story about being her family's failure. Her siblings were all high earners in traditional careers: doctor, lawyer, engineer. She was the artist who barely scraped by. That identity had become so central to her self-concept that success would mean losing her role in the family system. It would mean she couldn't be the one who struggled, the one everyone worried about, the one who validated her mother's fear that creative careers don't work. She burned the letter to that identity. She wrote her new declaration. "I'm a designer whose work commands premium prices because it generates massive value for clients. I am someone who earns 6 figures doing what I love. I am proof that artistry and wealth coexist beautifully." She read it every morning, and 32 days later, she sent an email to all her clients announcing her new rate. $150 an hour, 2 clients left. 11 stayed and paid the new rate without question. Within 4 months, she'd replaced those 2 clients with new ones at her new rate, and her income had tripled. But here's the most important part. She told me, "I'm a different person now. I walk differently. I speak differently. When I quote prices, there's no apology in my voice. I'm not pretending to be confident. I actually am confident because I'm not that broke designer anymore. That person is dead. I'm someone else entirely." That's the power of identity, death, and rebirth. Rachel didn't develop confidence and then raise her rates. She killed the identity that made low rates inevitable, installed a new identity, and the rate increase happened automatically because it matched who she'd become. This is how transformation works at the identity level. Now let's talk about the monster most people refuse to face. Your actual financial reality. One of the poverty program's favorite tricks is avoidance. If you don't look at the numbers, you don't have to feel the fear the numbers create. So you develop elaborate avoidance mechanisms. You estimate rather than calculate. You guess rather than check. You create a fog around your finances that lets you pretend the situation is vague and therefore somehow less threatening. This is called financial avoidance, and it's a protection mechanism your poverty program installed to keep you from feeling overwhelmed. The problem is, you can't manage what you won't measure. You can't change what you refuse to see. And your avoidance is costing you thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars because you're making decisions based on fear and vagueness instead of data and clarity. The antidote is exposure therapy. In psychology, exposure therapy is used to treat phobias and anxiety disorders. The principle is simple. Gradual, repeated exposure to the thing you fear in a safe context reduces the fear response. Your brain learns that the feared thing doesn't actually kill you, and the fear extinguishes. We're going to apply this principle to your financial reality. Here's your exposure hierarchy. This is a ladder of increasingly challenging financial actions, and you're going to climb it one rung at a time. The bottom rung is the least scary. The top rung is the most terrifying. You start at the bottom. You do that action repeatedly until your fear response drops. Then you move to the next rung. You're not trying to be brave. You're training your nervous system. Rung 1. Check your bank balance once per day. Just look at it. Notice the number. Notice the fear or discomfort or anxiety that arises. Breathe through it. Don't judge it. Just observe. Do this every day for 7 days. By day 7, you'll notice the fear is smaller. Your amygdala is learning this action doesn't kill you. Rung 2. Review all your monthly expenses. Every subscription, every bill, every regular charge. Write them down. Calculate the total. Sit with that number. Breathe. Again, you're not trying to fix anything. You're desensitizing yourself to seeing the reality. Do this 3 times in 1 week. The fear will decrease each time. Rung 3. Look at your debt. All of it. Credit cards, student loans, everything you owe. Write down the total amount and the interest rates. This is often the scariest number for people with financial avoidance. Your heart might race. You might feel nauseated. That's your poverty program screaming that this information is dangerous. Prove to your amygdala that it's not. You looked at the number and you're still alive. Your nervous system will log this data. Rung 4. Calculate your actual monthly income and subtract your actual monthly expenses. This number tells you if you're in surplus or deficit. Most people who avoid their finances don't know this number. They just have a vague sense of stress. Make the vague specific. Knowing the exact number gives you power, even if the number is uncomfortable. Rung 5. Project 6 months forward. If your current income and expenses stay the same, where will you be in 6 months? This is where avoidance usually lives, because this projection often reveals that the current situation isn't sustainable. Your poverty program would rather keep you in vague anxiety than specific awareness. Override it. Look at the projection. Feel the discomfort. Survive the discomfort. Rung 6. Calculate what you need to earn monthly to live your desired lifestyle, not your current lifestyle. Your desired one. Add up the costs. Travel, housing, food quality, entertainment, savings. What's the number? For most people, this number is larger than they've ever allowed themselves to name. Name it anyway. The poverty program says this number is impossible and looking at it will only depress you. Look at it anyway. Because once you name the target, your reticular activating system can start showing you paths toward it. Climb this ladder methodically. Don't skip rungs. Don't rush. Each rung is training your nervous system that financial reality is safe to see. By the time you reach rung 6, you'll have successfully rewired your relationship with money information. You'll be able to look at numbers without panic. This is the foundation for every wealth-building action that follows, because you can't build wealth while avoiding financial data. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus ran a small consulting business and hadn't looked at his full financial picture in 3 years. He knew roughly what he made. He knew roughly what he spent. But he'd been operating in fog because clarity felt too scary. When I walked him through the exposure hierarchy, he resisted hard at rung 3. He said, if I see the full debt number, I'll spiral. I told him, you're already spiraling. You're just spiraling in fog instead of in data. Fog spirals are worse because you can't find the exit. He looked at the number, $73,000 in debt. His fear was that seeing it would crush him. Instead, something unexpected happened. He felt relief. He said, it's bad, but it's knowable. I thought it might be twice that. Now I know exactly what I'm working with. Within 1 week of getting clear on his numbers, he identified 3 expenses he could cut that he didn't even remember signing up for, saving him $400 monthly. Within 1 month, he'd restructured his service offerings to increase his average project fee by 30%. None of that was possible while he was avoiding the data. Exposure therapy works. Your fear of financial reality is almost always worse than the reality itself. And once you can look directly at your numbers without your nervous system hijacking you, you become dangerous. Dangerous to poverty. Dangerous to limitation. Dangerous to every pattern that's been keeping you small. Now we need to address the thing that almost no one talks about in wealth building, and it's the reason most transformations don't stick. Your relationships. The people around you have a massive investment in you staying exactly as you are. Not because they're malicious, but because your change requires their change, and most people resist change with everything they have. Think about your 5 closest relationships. The people you talk to most frequently, the people whose opinions matter to you. Now ask yourself this. What is the average income of those 5 people? Because research shows with stunning consistency that your income will average out to approximately the same as your 5 closest contacts. This isn't coincidence. This is social neuroscience. We are deeply wired to mirror the people around us. Their speech patterns, their beliefs, their behaviors, their financial ceiling. If your 5 closest people all earn between $30,000 and $50,000 per year, your brain has absorbed that as the normal range. When you start to earn significantly more, you'll unconsciously feel like you're violating a social norm. Your nervous system will get uncomfortable. You'll start to sabotage. Not because you don't want wealth, but because you want belonging more. And your brain has learned that staying within your social group's income range is how you maintain belonging. This is called the crab bucket effect. When one crab tries to escape a bucket, the other crabs pull it back down. Not because they're evil crabs, but because they're programmed to stay together. Your brain has the same programming. When you start to rise above your social group's financial level, you'll feel invisible hands pulling you back. Those hands are your own discomfort with outgrowing your tribe. So what do? You have to make an extremely difficult decision. You have to evaluate each relationship and ask, does this person support my transformation, or does their comfort require my limitation? Most people refuse to ask this question because the answer might require painful choices. Ask it anyway. Here's how to evaluate. Pay attention to how people respond when you share wins or goals. If you tell someone you're raising your rates or starting a new venture or going for a big opportunity, what's their reaction? Do they get excited and ask engaged questions? Or do they immediately point out risks, remind you of past failures, or subtly discourage you with concerns framed as care? Notice the energy after you spend time with different people. Do you feel expanded or contracted? Energized or drained? More confident about your goals or more doubtful? Your nervous system knows who supports your transformation and who threatens it. Listen to what your body tells you. Here's the hard truth. Some relationships will not survive your financial transformation. The people who've known you as broke, who've bonded with you over shared financial struggle, who've built an identity around being the friends who can't afford things together. They're going to feel threatened when you change. You'll be removing yourself from a shared identity, and that feels like abandonment to them even if you don't intend it that way. You need to prepare for this. You need to know that as you reprogram for wealth, some people will distance themselves from you. Some will make passive-aggressive comments about you changing or getting too good for them. Some will suddenly have crises that require you to stay small to take care of them. This is not your imagination. This is the social system recognizing a member is defecting and applying pressure to bring them back into conformity. What do? You create clear boundaries. You limit how much you share about your financial transformation with people who've proven they can't celebrate it. You spend less time with people whose comfort requires your limitation. And yes, you may need to end some relationships entirely. This sounds harsh. It is harsh. But your transformation is more important than their comfort with your limitation. Let me be very clear about something. This doesn't mean you become cruel or superior or look down on people earning less. This doesn't mean you abandon people going through hard times. This means you protect your nervous system from constant messages that wealth is wrong, dangerous, or impossible. Because if you're trying to reprogram your brain for abundance while spending hours each week with people reinforcing scarcity, you're trying to build a house while someone else keeps knocking down the walls. It doesn't work. Here's the flip side. As you transform, you need to intentionally create proximity to people operating at the wealth level you're moving toward. This is not about using people. This is about changing your social reference point. Remember, your brain learns what's normal from your environment. If you're only around people earning $40,000 per year, 6 figures feels impossible. If you're regularly around people earning 6 figures, 6 figures feels normal and 7 figures feels possible. You need to rewire your sense of what's achievable, and proximity is the fastest way to do that. How do you create this proximity? You join different spaces. You go to events where high earners gather. You invest in masterminds or courses or coaching that put you in rooms with people ahead of you. You reach out to people you admire and offer value. You become useful to people operating at higher levels. This isn't networking in the sleazy sense. This is deliberately changing your social ecosystem because you understand that your environment programs your brain. Listen to Sarah's story. Sarah had a tight friend group from college. They'd been inseparable for 15 years. They had a group chat that was active all day. They traveled together. They were each other's people. The problem was all 5 of them were stuck in similar financial situations. Mid-level corporate jobs they complained about constantly. Side hustles that never quite worked. Chronic money stress masked with jokes. When Sarah started her reprogramming work, she got excited and shared it in the group chat. The response was immediate and negative. Lots of eye-roll emojis. Comments about manifestation nonsense. One friend sent a private message saying she was worried Sarah was getting sucked into toxic positivity. Sarah felt crushed. These were her people. If they didn't support this, maybe she was wrong. But she kept going. She started spending less time in the group chat. She joined a business community for women entrepreneurs. She started having coffee with a woman in her neighborhood who ran a successful agency. And her life started changing. Her income doubled, then tripled. Her confidence shifted. Her whole energy changed, the friend group noticed. They made comments. "You never have time for us anymore. You're different now," one friend said directly. "I feel like you think you're better than us." Sarah had to make the hardest decision of her life. She told them, "I love you. I'm not better than you. I'm just becoming someone different. I need to be around people who are where I'm going, not where I've been. I hope you'll support that." Some of them did. Most of them didn't. The friendship group splintered. 2 years later, Sarah told me, losing those friendships was the most painful part of my transformation. It hurt worse than any business failure, but I had to choose between their comfort and my growth. I couldn't have both. Now I have friends who celebrate my wins, who think my goals are too small, who push me to expand instead of contract. I didn't know relationships could feel like this. I didn't know people could make you bigger instead of smaller. That's what happens when you consciously curate your relationships for transformation instead of comfort. You lose some people, you gain different people, and the person you become makes the loss worth it. Now let's get extremely practical. Because you can reprogram your mind and change your identity and shift your relationships. But if that doesn't translate into actual increased income, none of it matters. So how do you turn mental shifts into money? How do you know when you're ready? And what are the specific actions that generate wealth once your operating system is upgraded? First, the readiness assessment. You're ready to activate new income streams when you can do the following things without significant fear response. Check your bank balance daily without dread. State your prices without apologizing. Have money conversations without changing the subject. See wealthy people without resentment. Receive compliments or money without deflecting. Think about your financial future without anxiety. If you can do these things, your nervous system has been successfully trained. You're operating from a wealth program instead of a poverty program. Now you can build. Here's the framework. You're going to identify 3 to 7 income streams and activate them systematic. Now for each item, ask this question. What would someone pay to have this skill, knowledge, or problem-solving ability? Not what do I think I deserve. Not what feels comfortable. What would someone actually pay? To answer this accurately, you need to do research. Look at what others charge for similar offerings. Ask people in your target market what they'd pay. Get concrete data. Your poverty program will try to lowball the number. Override it with research. Now you're going to activate the 3 easiest streams first. Easiest means the ones that require the least setup, have the most immediate market, and leverage skills you're most confident in. For most people, this looks like some combination of consulting, freelancing, teaching, or creating a simple productized service. You're not trying to build complex businesses yet. You're trying to prove to your nervous system that you can generate income outside your primary source. This proof is neurological gold. Launch these 3 streams within 30 days. Not perfectly. Not with fancy websites or complete systems. Just launch. Offer the thing. Price it from your wealth programming. Tell people it exists. Generate the first sale. That first sale is a neural event. Your brain logs it as evidence that this new identity is real. You're not just someone who talks about wealth. You're someone who creates it. Here's what happens next. One of 2 things. Either the stream generates income easily, in which case you scale it, or it doesn't, in which case you learn from it and pivot. Both outcomes are wins, because both are data and both prove you're someone who takes action. The poverty program is terrified of both outcomes. Success means you're leaving it behind. Failure means you're risking the familiar. By taking action regardless, you're proving to your subconscious that the poverty program no longer runs the show. Let me tell you about James. James was a physical therapist earning $70,000 per year at a clinic. Good salary, stable job, but he felt financially trapped. He did the reprogramming work and then did the skill monetization matrix. He realized he had expertise in treating running injuries that most PTs didn't have. He knew the rehab protocols. He knew the common mistakes. He knew how to get runners back to training faster. He launched a virtual coaching offer, 90-day running injury rehab program, $497. He posted about it in 3 running forums. He got his first client within a week, his second within 2 weeks. Within 4 months, he was making an extra $3,000 per month from 8 to 10 hours of work weekly. That's stream 1. Then he noticed people asking questions about injury prevention. He created a course, recorded it in 1 weekend, priced it at $97, sold it through email to the people who'd been asking questions. That's stream 2. Then someone asked if he did in-person workshops for running clubs. He'd never considered it, but his new identity said why not. He charged $500 for a 2-hour workshop. Booked 3 in 2 months. That's stream 3. Within 6 months of starting his reprogramming work, James had 4 income streams. His clinic salary plus 3 new streams generating approximately $4,000 monthly combined. His income had increased by nearly 70%. But here's what he told me that matters most. I'm a completely different person. 6 months ago, all of this would have felt impossible. Not because I couldn't do it, but because I couldn't imagine being the person who does it. Now I am that person. I see opportunities everywhere. My brain works differently. That's the point. The money is the proof, but the transformation is the prize. You're becoming someone who generates wealth as a natural expression of who you are, not as an exhausting effort to be someone you're not. Now we need to talk about the thing that will try to destroy everything you've built. Relapse. You will be tempted to fall back into poverty programming. It will feel like relief. It will feel like coming home. It will feel like finally you can stop pretending and just be your real self again. This is your poverty program's last stand. It's fighting for survival, and it's very, very good at finding your weak points. Relapse usually happens during one of three trigger situations: crisis, family, or unexpected success. Let's talk about each one. Crisis reactivates your oldest programming. When something goes wrong, when you lose a client or have an unexpected expense or get sick or face any kind of threat, your brain defaults to its most deeply embedded patterns. For most people, that means the poverty program. Suddenly you're back in scarcity thinking, back in fear, back in the behaviors you thought you'd transcended. This is not failure. This is neuroscience. Under stress, your brain runs the oldest, most practiced programs because those feel safest. The way you prevent crisis relapse is by pre-installing crisis protocols. Before crisis happens, you decide how you'll respond. You write it down. You make it a plan you can follow when your prefrontal cortex is offline. Here's what the protocol looks like. When crisis hits, I will first regulate my nervous system. I will breathe. I will move my body. I will not make financial decisions while flooded with stress chemicals. Then I will access my resources. I will look at what I have, not what I lack. I will solve from abundance consciousness even if the situation is objectively scarce. Then I will reach out to my wealth-programmed contacts. I will not isolate. I will not shame spiral. I will ask for support from people who will remind me of my new identity when I've forgotten it. Write this protocol now. Put it somewhere you'll find it when you need it, because you will need it. Crisis is not if, it's when. And having a plan means crisis becomes evidence of your resilience instead of proof that you were fooling yourself all along. Family is the second major relapse trigger. You can do 6 months of perfect reprogramming work, and then you go home for a holiday, and within 3 hours you're back in your childhood role. The broke one, the struggling one, the one who needs help. Your family has decades of practice seeing you a certain way. They have emotional investments in you staying that way, and being around them reactivates every neural pathway associated with your old identity. The way you handle this is with boundaries and pre-commitment. Before you see family, you decide what you will and won't discuss. You decide how much of your transformation you'll share. With some families, the answer is everything. With others, the answer is nothing. You know your family. Trust your instincts. If sharing your wins will result in minimization or criticism or sudden crises that need your attention, don't share. Protect your transformation by keeping it private. You're not lying. You're not hiding. You're being strategic about who gets access to vulnerable information about your growth. The third trigger is unexpected success. This sounds backwards, but it's incredibly common. You hit a goal. You make more money than ever. You land a dream client, and then you sabotage. You overspend. You make a terrible business decision. You burn a key relationship. Why? Because success exceeded your identity's capacity. Your wealth ceiling was breached, and your subconscious panicked and created circumstances to bring you back down to a familiar level. The prevention is the same as the other triggers: awareness and protocol. Know that this is a common pattern. Expect that success might feel uncomfortable. Plan how you'll respond. When I achieve a significant win, I will not make any major financial decisions for 72 hours. I will journal about the discomfort. I will call my accountability partner. I will remind myself that this level of success is safe and sustainable. I will not self-sabotage just because I've exceeded my old ceiling. These protocols sound simple. They are simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. When you're in the middle of a relapse trigger, your thinking brain is not fully online. You need to have done the thinking in advance. You need to have the plan ready. Because relapse prevention isn't about being perfect. It's about catching yourself faster each time and having tools to redirect. Now let's go deeper into something that quietly sabotages more financial transformations than anything else: worthiness. You can reprogram your conscious thoughts, change your identity, shift your behavior, and still have a whisper underneath it all that says, "I don't actually deserve this." That whisper is the worthiness wound, and until you heal it, you'll unconsciously create circumstances that match your sense of deservingness instead of your goals. The worthiness wound usually originates in conditional love or approval. You learned early that your value was tied to your performance, your compliance, your ability to meet others' needs. When you succeeded or behaved correctly, you received warmth and approval. When you failed or disappointed, you experienced withdrawal, criticism, or coldness. Your young brain learned that love and value are earned through achievement and lost through failure. This creates a devastating relationship with money because money becomes entangled with worthiness. If I make a lot of money, I'm worthy. If I don't, I'm not. And if I'm not inherently worthy, then any wealth I generate is fragile, temporary, and probably about to be taken away because I don't really deserve it. This belief system creates constant anxiety around money and unconscious self-sabotage when success arrives, because success that exceeds your sense of deservingness feels dangerous. Here's how the worthiness wound shows up around money. You deflect compliments. Someone praises your work, and you immediately minimize it or redirect to someone else. You have trouble. This is the worthiness inventory work. You're going to identify 5 to 10 moments when you learned that your value was conditional. Write each one down. Describe what happened and what you learned. Then rewrite each one from your current adult perspective. Offer yourself the truth you needed then. Your value was never in question. The adults around you were wounded and taught you false things because that's what they believed. You absorbed those beliefs because children do. Now you're releasing them because you can. After you've done this written work, you need to practice receiving without earning. This is the most uncomfortable practice for people with worthiness wounds. Find small, low-stakes opportunities to receive without reciprocating. When someone compliments you, say thank you and nothing else. Don't deflect. Don't minimize. Don't immediately compliment them back. Just receive. When someone offers to help you, say yes without justifying why you need help. When someone pays you, receive the payment without mental calculations about whether you gave enough value. Just receive. This will feel excruciating at first. Your nervous system will scream that you're being selfish, greedy, or taking advantage. That's the worthiness wound talking. Ignore it. Keep practicing. Receive, receive, receive. You're training your nervous system that receiving is safe, that you don't have to earn every moment of care or every dollar, that your value is inherent and your deservingness is a given. As this practice deepens, something remarkable happens. Money becomes easier. Not because you're working harder or developing new skills, but because you're no longer unconsciously rejecting it. When you believe you deserve wealth, your brain stops generating reasons to avoid it. Opportunities become visible. Conversations become easier. Success becomes sustainable instead of terrifying. Let me close this section with Alex's story. Alex built a successful consulting business. He was making $200,000 per year. From the outside, he'd made it. But internally, he was miserable. He worked constantly. He couldn't enjoy his income. Every time he tried to take time off, he'd feel guilty and end up working anyway. He told me, "I know I make good money. I know I'm successful, but I don't feel successful. I feel like I'm about to be found out." We trace this back to his worthiness wound. His father was a workaholic who equated rest with laziness and believed value came only from productivity. Alex learned that he was worthy only when he was working. So even though he'd built financial success, he couldn't enjoy it because enjoyment meant stopping work, which meant becoming worthless. He did the worthiness inventory. He practiced receiving. He deliberately took a 2-week vacation and forced himself not to work. It was agonizing, but he survived. And when he came back, something had shifted. He told me, "I realized I'm the same person whether I'm working or not. My value doesn't change. I've been running from a ghost. I've been trying to prove to my dead father that I'm worthy. He's been gone for 10 years. I can stop now." Within 6 months, Alex restructured his business. He hired support. He cut his hours by 40%. And his income increased because he was making clear-headed decisions instead of anxious ones. He said, "I finally feel wealthy. Not because I make more, but because I can actually enjoy what I have. That's what I was chasing all along. That's what healed worthiness looks like. Not just bigger numbers, but the ability to inhabit your wealth, to feel it, to enjoy it, to stop running from an imagined judgment and start living in the reality that you're inherently valuable and fundamentally deserving." Now we're going to tackle something most wealth advice completely ignores, and it's killing your income potential. Your relationship with time. Most people trying to build wealth believe the equation is simple. More hours equals more money. So they hustle, they grind, they sacrifice sleep and health and relationships because they've been taught that wealth requires exhaustion. This is poverty programming masquerading as work ethic. Here's the truth. Hustling keeps you broke. Not because effort doesn't matter, but because the hustle mindset is rooted in scarcity. Hustling says I have to squeeze every possible hour because there's never enough time and opportunities are scarce, and if I rest, I'll fall behind. All of that is poverty consciousness. Wealthy people don't hustle. They leverage. What's the difference? Hustling is trading your time directly for money. Leverage is creating systems, products, or relationships that generate value without your constant presence. Hustling scales linearly at best. If you work twice as many hours, you might make twice as much money until you run out of hours or your body breaks. Leverage scales exponentially. You create something once, and it generates value repeatedly. You build a system, and it produces results while you sleep. Your poverty program is terrified of leverage because leverage requires upfront investment of time or money with no immediate return. That ambiguity, that delayed gratification, that risk, it all triggers your threat response. So you default to hustling because hustling feels productive. You're busy. You're working hard. You're doing something. But busy is not the same as effective. Hard work is not the same as valuable work. Here's how to shift from hustle to leverage. First, do a time audit. For 1 week, track every hour. Not approximately. Exactly. What are you actually doing with your time? Most people discover that 60 to 70% of their working hours are spent on low-value activities. Administrative tasks, email, busy work, meetings that don't produce results. You're exhausted not because you're doing too much high-value work, but because you're doing endless low-value work that creates the illusion of productivity. Once you have your time data, run every activity through the leverage filter. Ask, does this activity produce value once, or does it produce value repeatedly? Does this require my specific skills, or could someone else do this? Could this be systemized, automated, or eliminated entirely? Most people realize that at least half of what they're doing could be delegated, automated, or simply stopped with no negative impact. Here's your new rule. You only do activities that either produce exponential value or develop skills that lead to exponential value. Everything else gets delegated, automated, or deleted. This sounds extreme. It is extreme, because extreme focus is how wealth is actually built. Diffuse effort produces diffuse results. Concentrated effort produces concentrated results. Now let's talk about rest. Your poverty program believes rest is wasted time. Wealthy programming understands that rest is when integration happens. Your brain solves problems during downtime. Your creativity activates during rest. Your nervous system recalibrates when you're not in production mode. If you're in constant motion, constant doing, constant hustling, you're actually preventing the insight and integration that lead to breakthrough. This is why some of the wealthiest people in the world are obsessive about rest. They understand that decision quality matters more than decision quantity, and decision quality degrades rapidly under fatigue. If you're making financial decisions when you're exhausted, when your prefrontal cortex is depleted, when your nervous system is fried, you're going to make poor decisions. Those poor decisions cost you far more than the hour of rest would have. So here's your protocol. Build rest into your schedule the same way you build work, not as a reward for productivity, but as a requirement for sustainable wealth building. This might mean 8 hours of sleep non-negotiable. It might mean 1 full day per week with 0 work. It might mean a 20-minute walk every afternoon. Whatever form it takes, rest becomes a priority, not an afterthought. Let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer ran a marketing agency and worked 80-hour weeks. She believed this was necessary because competition was fierce and clients were demanding, and if she wasn't available constantly, she'd lose business. She wore her exhaustion like a badge of honor, until she had a breakdown. Not dramatic, just a quiet collapse where she couldn't get out of bed for 3 days. When she recovered, she made a radical decision. She was going to work 40 hours per week maximum. She was going to sleep 8 hours every night. She was going to take Sundays completely off. She was terrified this would tank her business. Instead, her revenue increased by 40% within 6 months. How? She had energy to think strategically. She said no to low-value clients. She focused only on high-leverage activities. She made better decisions because her brain wasn't operating in constant crisis mode. She told me, I thought being exhausted was what successful looked like. Turns out exhaustion is what broke looks like. Wealth is having the spaciousness to think clearly and move deliberately. I'm making more money working half the hours because I'm working from wealth consciousness instead of poverty panic. That's the shift. Poverty panic says do everything, work constantly, squeeze every hour. Wealth consciousness says do the right things, work strategically, protect your energy. One leads to burnout and mediocre results. The other leads to sustainability and exponential growth. Now let's talk about something that most people are actively terrible at, and it's costing them tens of thousands of dollars per year. Talking about money. You need to have clear, direct, unapologetic conversations about money in every area of your life. And right now you're probably avoiding, deflecting, or apologizing your way through these conversations. This is poverty programming in action, and it's keeping you broke. The silence tax is real. Every time you don't ask for a raise because you're uncomfortable, that's the silence tax. Every time you don't state your full price because you're afraid of the reaction, that's the silence tax. Every time you accept less than you want because negotiating feels awkward, that's the silence tax. Add it up over a year, over a decade, over a lifetime. The silence tax is the most expensive tax you'll ever pay. Here's why money conversations are so hard. You were taught that talking about money is rude, tacky, or inappropriate. You absorbed the belief that polite people don't discuss numbers. This is specifically designed to keep you powerless, because if you can't talk about money clearly, you can't negotiate effectively. You can't advocate for yourself. You can't coordinate with others to understand market rates. You stay in the dark, making decisions based on guesses and fear instead of information and confidence. The first money conversation you need to master is the pricing conversation. When someone asks what you charge, your poverty program wants you to apologize, qualify, or offer discounts before you even state the number. Here's what it sounds like. Well, I usually charge this, but I know that might be high, so I could probably do it for less if that works better for you. You've destroyed your value before the negotiation even started. Here's the wealthy version. My rate is X, full stop. No apology. No justification. No preemptive discount. You state your price with the energy of someone who knows their value and expects it to be met. Most people cannot do this. Their voice shakes. They rush through the number. They immediately follow it with reasons why they could charge less. This is your poverty program executing. It believes that asking for full value is dangerous and rejection is unbearable. Override it. Practice this right now. Say out loud, my rate is $5,000. Notice what happens in your body. Does your throat tighten? Does your chest constrict? Does a voice immediately start saying that's too much? No one will pay that. You're being greedy? That's the program. Now say it again. My rate is $5,000. Keep saying it until the physical response diminishes. You're training your nervous system that stating your price is safe. The second conversation is the raise request. Most people either never ask or they ask from a place of need and apology. I'm struggling with my expenses, so I was wondering if maybe there's any possibility of a small raise. This frames you as someone who needs rescue, not someone who deserves compensation for value delivered. Employers respond to value, not need. Here's the wealthy version. I want to discuss increasing my compensation. Over the past year, I've delivered X results, which have generated Y value for the company. Based on market rates for someone with my skills and track record, I'm requesting a salary of Z. When can we have this conversation? You're not asking permission. You're not apologizing. You're stating facts and making a request based on value. This might feel aggressive to you. That's because your poverty program is comparing it to your usual apologetic approach. To the listener, this sounds professional and confident. The third conversation is the boundary conversation with family or friends. This is where most people completely fold. Someone asks to borrow money. Someone expects you to pay because you're doing well. Someone needs help and assumes you'll provide it financially. Your poverty program says you have to say yes because saying no makes you selfish. Your wealth program says you can say no because your financial security matters and helping someone in a way that damages you isn't actually helping. Here's what the no sounds like. I'm not able to do that. No explanation. No justification. No detailed breakdown of your finances to prove you can't. Just, I'm not able to do that. Most people find this impossibly hard. They want to soften it. They want to explain. They want to make the other person understand so they won't be mad. But explaining is defending, and defending your no makes it negotiable. A simple, firm no is complete. The fourth conversation is the transparency conversation. This is the most powerful and least practiced. You share actual numbers with trusted people. What you earn, what you charge, what you're aiming for. The poverty program says this is bragging or complaining or inviting judgment. The wealth program says this is coordinating information and building collective power. When people share real numbers, everyone benefits. You learn market rates. You identify when you're being underpaid. You realize what's actually possible. Find 2 or 3 people who are also working on wealth building. Tell them you want to practice financial transparency. Share your current income, your goal income, and one financial challenge you're facing. Ask them to share the same. The first time you do this, it will feel exposing. By the 3rd time, it will feel normal. By the 10th time, it will feel essential. You've rewired your relationship with money talk. It's no longer shameful. It's strategic. Now let's talk about the ultimate goal of all this reprogramming work. Legacy. Not just having wealth in your lifetime, but ensuring it transfers to the next generation and breaks the poverty cycle in your family permanently. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most wealth doesn't survive 3 generations. First generation builds it. Second generation maintains it. Third generation loses it. This pattern is so consistent, there are sayings about it in multiple cultures. Rags to rags in 3 generations. Why does this happen? Because wealth without wealthy programming is temporary. If you build money but don't build the mindset and skills and identity that created the money, you can't pass it on effectively. Your kids might inherit the money, but they don't inherit the programming. And without the programming, they'll revert to whatever financial patterns they absorbed from watching you before you transformed, or from the culture around them. So how do you break this cycle? You deliberately install wealth programming in your children from day one. Not by giving them money, but by modeling wealth consciousness and teaching them the skills and beliefs that generate wealth. This is radically different from how most people approach teaching kids about money, which is usually some vague combination of save your allowance and don't be wasteful. Here's what installing wealth programming in children actually looks like. First, you let them see you make financial decisions. Most parents hide money conversations from kids, believing they're protecting them from worry. Actually, you're protecting them from learning. Children learn by observation. If they never see you calmly discuss a budget, evaluate an investment, negotiate a price, or make a strategic financial choice, they don't learn those skills. They enter adulthood with no template for financial competence, so you make money conversations normal and age-appropriate. With young children, this might sound like, we're deciding between these 2 options for vacation. This one costs more but gives us extra time together. This one costs less but we'd need to drive longer. What do you think matters most? You're teaching them that money is a tool for making choices aligned with values, not a source of fear or shame. With older children, you bring them into real financial decisions. We're looking at these 3 investment options for the college fund. Let me show you how we're evaluating them. You're teaching them that wealth is built through informed decisions, not luck or secrets. You're demystifying money. You're showing them that financial competence is learnable, not magical. Second, you teach them to generate value, not just consume. Most parents give kids allowances tied to existing, which teaches them money comes from simply being, or tied to chores, which teaches them money comes from tasks. Neither of these mirrors how wealth actually works in the world. Wealth comes from creating value that others want to pay for. So instead of traditional allowances, you create opportunities for your children to generate income by solving problems or providing value. This might look like paying them to organize the garage in a way that actually improves functionality. Paying them to research and present options for a family purchase. Paying them to create something useful. You're teaching them the fundamental wealth equation. Identify what people need, provide it, receive compensation. This is the operating system wealthy people run. Install it early. Third, you model abundance language. Listen to how you talk about money in front of your children. Do you say we can't afford that with a tone of resignation and scarcity? Or do you say we're choosing not to spend money on that right now because we're prioritizing something else? The first teaches helplessness. The second teaches agency. Your children are absorbing your money language. Every phrase you repeat becomes part of their programming. Make sure you're programming abundance, not limitation. Fourth, you let them fail financially in low-stakes ways while they're young. If your teenager wants something expensive, don't just buy it or refuse it. Help them make a plan to earn it. Then let them execute the plan. If they spend their earnings on something else impulsively and regret it, don't rescue them. Let them. When her daughter turned 16, Maria gave her a choice. She could have a car, or she could have the cash value of the car to invest in starting a business. Her daughter chose the business. She started a tutoring company, hired other high school students, and was generating $4,000 a month by her senior year. She went to college with more business experience than most adults, and a deeply embedded belief that she could generate income through value creation. Maria told me, "My daughter has never known poverty, but she's also never taken wealth for granted. She knows exactly how it's built because she's watched me build it and then built her own version. She has the programming. That's the inheritance that matters. The money is secondary to the mindset. That's legacy work. Not just accumulating wealth, but ensuring the next generation has the internal resources to maintain and grow it. That's how you break the generational poverty cycle permanently." Now I want to take you through a visualization. This is not manifestation. This is not wishing. This is a neuroscience-based practice that primes your brain to recognize and act on wealth-building opportunities. Your brain doesn't distinguish sharply between vividly imagined experiences and real ones. When you imagine something with enough sensory detail, your brain creates neural pathways as if the experience actually happened. We're going to use this deliberately. Find a comfortable position. Close your eyes if you're able. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. Release it slowly. Do that 2 more times. Feel your body settle. Feel the surface beneath you supporting your weight. Let your shoulders drop. Soften your jaw. Relax your forehead. Good. Now I want you to imagine yourself 1 year from today. You've successfully reprogrammed your relationship with money. You've implemented everything you've learned. See yourself in a specific location. Where are you? What does the space look like? Notice the details, colors, lighting, temperature. Make it real in your mind. Now notice how you're standing or sitting. Your posture is different. There's a quality of ease in your body. Confidence. Calm. This is you with wealth programming fully installed. Now watch yourself check your bank balance. In this future moment, you pull out your phone and open your banking app without any hesitation. You look at the number. It's significantly higher than it is today. Notice your reaction. There's no surprise, no disbelief, just a quiet acknowledgement. Of course, this is normal now. This is who you are. Feel that certainty in your body. This is your wealth identity fully embodied. Now watch yourself in a conversation about money. Someone asks what you charge. You state your number clearly, calmly, with no apology. You feel no urge to discount or justify. You simply name your value and wait. The person agrees without hesitation. Notice how that feels. Notice the absence of anxiety. Notice the presence of self-assurance. This is you operating from wealth consciousness. Now see yourself making a financial decision. You're choosing between 2 investments or business opportunities. You're evaluating them clearly. No fear, no paralysis, just calm analysis and confident choice. You make the decision. You move forward. You trust yourself. Feel that trust. That's your reprogrammed nervous system. That's what we're building. Take 1 more deep breath. Bring your awareness back to this moment. Open your eyes. What you just experienced, your brain logged as real. You've created a neural template. Now, every time you face an actual financial decision or conversation, your brain has this template to reference. You've given yourself a preview of the person you're becoming, and that preview makes becoming that person significantly easier. Do this visualization daily. Every time you do it, you're strengthening the neural pathway. You're making wealth consciousness more automatic. You're training your brain to recognize this as your identity, not as a fantasy. This is practical neuroscience applied to wealth building. Let's address something that might be coming up for you right now. Doubt. You might be thinking, this sounds good, but will it actually work for me? I've tried things before. I've failed before. What if this is just more information that doesn't translate into results? That doubt is your poverty program trying to maintain control. It knows it's under threat and it's using its most powerful weapon. The belief that change isn't possible for you. Let me ask you something. Do you believe your brain is different from other human brains in some fundamental way? Do you believe the neuroscience that applies to everyone else somehow doesn't apply to you? Of course not. Your brain works the same way every brain works. Neural pathways form through repetition. Amygdala responses can be retrained. Reticular activating systems filter based on programming. Identity shapes behavior. None of this is opinion. This is established science. So if the mechanisms are universal, why would the results be different for you? The only reason is if you don't actually implement. Information alone changes nothing. Knowledge without application is entertainment. You can know everything in this audiobook and stay exactly as broke as you are today if you don't do the work. But if you do the work, the neuroscience doesn't care about your history. It doesn't care about your past failures. It doesn't care about your limiting beliefs. It just works. Your past attempts failed not because you're broken, but because you were trying to change behavior without changing the underlying programming. You were trying to force yourself to act differently while your subconscious identity remained the same. That's exhausting and unsustainable. What we're doing here is different. We're changing the identity. We're rewiring the program. Once that's done, the behavior changes automatically because it's now congruent with who you are. So the question isn't, will this work? The question is, will you work it? Will you do the 4 a.m. millionaire mind routine for 21 consecutive days, or will you do it twice and quit? Will you actually perform the identity death ritual, or will you skip it because it feels uncomfortable? Will you have the hard relationship conversations, or will you avoid them to keep the peace? The methodology works. The only variable is your commitment to implementation. And here's what I want you to understand. You don't need to believe it will work. You don't need to feel confident. You don't need to have unwavering faith. You just need to do it anyway. Belief follows action far more often than action follows belief. You act as if the new programming is true. You repeat the practices. You make the changes. And then one day, you notice you do believe it. Not because you convinced yourself intellectually, but because you've accumulated evidence through experience. You've seen yourself take actions your old identity couldn't take. You've seen results your old programming said were impossible. Belief becomes inevitable because it's based on proof. So if doubt arises, and it will, acknowledge it. Say, yes, there's doubt. And I'm doing this anyway. Doubt is just a thought. It's not a fact. It's not a prophecy. It's not a stop sign. It's just your poverty program's last attempt to maintain control. Let it doubt, do the work regardless. Now let's talk about what happens after transformation. Because transformation isn't a destination. It's a threshold you cross into a new way of being. And that new way of being requires maintenance. You don't reprogram once and then forget about it. You reprogram and then protect the new programming through consistent practice. This is where most people fail. They do the intensive work. They see results. They think they're done. Then slowly, subtly, the old programming creeps back in. 6 months later, they're wondering why they're struggling again. Here's your maintenance protocol. Every single day, you do at least one practice that reinforces your wealth identity. It might be the morning declarations. It might be the somatic anchoring. It might be a 5-minute visualization. But you don't skip days. Not because you're being rigid, but because neural pathways weaken without use. You're maintaining the highway you built. Daily practice keeps it strong. Every week you do a financial review. Not with dread, not with judgment, with curiosity and strategy. You look at what money came in, what went out, what opportunities you noticed, what fears arose, what actions you took. You're staying connected to your financial reality and making course corrections in real time instead of waiting for crisis to force your attention. Every month you assess your relationships. Who's supporting your transformation? Who's subtly undermining it? Where do you need boundaries? Where do you need more connection? Your social environment is constantly influencing your programming. You stay conscious of that influence and curate it deliberately. Every quarter, you review your income streams. What's working? What's not? Where's the next growth opportunity? What needs to be cut or delegated? You're thinking strategically instead of reactively. You're running your wealth building like a business, because it is a business. The business of becoming and staying wealthy. Every year you repeat key practices. The identity death ritual. The worthiness inventory. The time audit. You're checking that the old programming hasn't quietly reinfected you. You're reinforcing the boundaries. You're celebrating how far you've come and recalibrating for where you're going. This sounds like a lot. It's not. It's maybe 30 minutes daily and a few hours quarterly. That's the maintenance cost of financial transformation. Compare that to the cost of staying broke, which is your entire life lived in limitation and stress. The maintenance is nothing compared. Let me tell you about David. David did incredible transformation work. In 18 months, he tripled his income. He changed his identity. He rebuilt his life. Then he stopped the practices. He thought, I've got this now. I don't need the morning routine. I know who I am. Slowly, things started sliding. Not dramatically, just small things. He started apologizing when stating prices again. He noticed he was avoiding his bank balance. He took on a low-paying client because he felt sorry for them. Little poverty program behaviors creeping back in. By month 6 of no maintenance, he'd lost a major client and was back in scarcity thinking. He told me I thought I was cured. I didn't realize this was an ongoing practice. I stopped training and the old patterns returned because those neural pathways are still there, just dormant. I learned the hard way that transformation requires maintenance. He restarted the practices. Within 3 months, he was back on track. Within 6 months, he'd exceeded his previous income high. He told me, now I understand. This isn't a program I complete. It's a practice I live. The daily practices aren't a burden. They're what keep me in the identity that creates the results I want. I'll do them forever because the alternative is reverting to who I was. That's the mature understanding of transformation. It's not one time. It's ongoing. And that's not a problem. That's just reality. You brush your teeth daily. You exercise regularly. You maintain your relationships. Why would you expect your wealth programming to require less maintenance than your teeth? Build the practices into your life. Make them non-negotiable. That's how transformation becomes permanent. We're coming to the end of this audiobook, and I want to leave you with the most important insight of all. Everything you've learned here, every practice, every reframe, every protocol, it all comes down to one fundamental shift. You are changing your relationship with yourself. Poverty programming is ultimately self-rejection. It's the belief that you're not enough, not worthy, not capable. It's living as if your value needs to be proven and your deservingness needs to be earned. Wealth programming is self-acceptance. It's the recognition that you're inherently valuable, fundamentally capable, and naturally deserving. Every time you state your price without apologizing, you're accepting yourself. Every time you check your bank balance without shame, you're accepting yourself. Every time you invest in your growth or set a boundary or receive without guilt, you're accepting yourself. The money is downstream from this. The opportunities are downstream from this. The entire transformation is downstream from learning to relate to yourself as someone who is, right now, already enough. This is why willpower doesn't work. You can't force yourself into wealth while fundamentally believing you're not worthy of it. You can't hustle your way into abundance while running on a program of scarcity. The external work only produces lasting results when the internal work is done first. That's what we've been doing here. Internal work, reprogramming, identity shifting, healing, this is the foundation. Build here, and everything else becomes possible. So as you close this audiobook and return to your life, you have a choice. You can treat this as interesting information and change nothing. Or you can treat this as a blueprint and change everything. You can nod along and stay exactly where you are. Or you can do the uncomfortable work of killing your broke identity, installing new programming, and becoming unrecognizable to your former self. Here's what I want you to know. You're capable of this, not someday, not when circumstances are better. Right now, with whatever resources you currently have, with whatever history you're carrying, with whatever doubt is screaming in your mind, you're capable. The neuroscience doesn't require you to be special. It just requires you to be committed. The next 90 days will prove it. If you implement what you've learned here, if you do the daily practices, if you make the identity shifts, if you have the hard conversations, you will see measurable change. New income, new opportunities, new confidence, new results. Not because of magic or luck, but because you've literally rebuilt your brain's approach to wealth. And 6 months from now, when you're living in that new reality, when you're checking your significantly higher bank balance without flinch, when you're stating your prices with calm certainty, when you're making financial decisions from abundance instead of fear, you'll barely remember the person who started this audiobook. That person will feel like someone you used to know, someone you outgrew, someone you chose to stop being. That's the transformation waiting for you. Your old identity is optional. Your poverty programming is changeable. Your financial future is not predetermined by your past. You get to choose, right now, in this moment. You get to decide that you're done running the old program. You get to decide that you're installing new code. You get to decide that you're becoming the version of yourself that generates wealth effortlessly because it's simply who you are. The practices are in your hands. The protocols are clear. The path is mapped. All that's left is your decision. Will you stay comfortable in limitation, or will you step into the discomfort of transformation and claim the wealth that's waiting on the other side? You started this audiobook with invisible poverty programming running your financial life. You now possess a reprogrammed operating system that automatically generates wealth. The next 90 days will prove it. Unexpected income, confident pricing, strategic opportunities. Your old identity is dead. You mourned it, buried it, and built something wealthier. Broke friends will feel the distance. That's not cruelty, that's transformation. Your children will inherit a different financial story because you rewrote yours. Re-listen to this audiobook in 6 months. You won't recognize the person who pressed play today. The neural pathways are carved. The beliefs are installed. The behavior patterns are automated. Wealth is no longer something you chase. It's what you've become. Welcome to your reprogrammed life. The riches are already here.